It started with something simple. My car had broken down the day before, wouldn't start at all, so we took hers to grab a few things from the store. I drove. She ran inside to get almond milk and frozen blueberries, the kind of thing she said we were out of every other week. My phone was low on battery, and I didn't see a charger plugged in, so I popped open the glove compartment to check if she kept one in there. The latch stuck a little. I gave it a nudge and it popped open. No charger. But sitting on top of a few gum wrappers and an old pair of sunglasses was a small white envelope with a gold keycard logo printed across it. It wasn't sealed, just folded neatly. A hotel envelope. I stared at it. For a second, I thought about closing the compartment and pretending I hadn't seen it. But my hand moved before my head caught up. Inside was a printed receipt, tucked tight like it had been deliberately saved. Dinner for two, room service at the Whitestone Hotel in Omaha. $186.52. Two entrees, two glasses of Merlot, creme brulee to finish. The date stamped at the bottom was last Tuesday. I stared at the paper. Bonnie had told me she was working late that night, prepping a pitch deck for a startup out of Dallas. Said she was wiped and didn't want to be disturbed. She didn't say anything about Omaha. She hadn't even mentioned the city once in our 5 years of marriage. We lived in Lincoln. Omaha was only an hour away, but she'd always said she hated the traffic. I slid the receipt back in the envelope, closed the glove box, and leaned back. Bonnie came out of the store a minute later, humming under her breath, keys swinging from her fingers. "Got what you needed?" I asked casually. She smiled. "Yep, got your protein bars too." I smiled back and said nothing about the envelope. Not yet. That Friday night, we were sitting on the couch. Bonnie was halfway through an episode of some reality show where everyone was screaming over a dinner reservation, and I was sipping a beer, staring at the edge of the TV, but not really watching. I waited until a commercial break. "Hey," I said, "you ever been to Omaha recently?" She didn't look up. "Omaha? No. Why would I go to Omaha?" I nodded. "Just asking." She finally glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. "Random question." "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice level. "I was looking for a phone charger in your glove compartment the other day while we were at the store. Found a few things in there. Thought maybe you'd been out that way for something." She paused. Barely a second, but I caught it. Then her face smoothed out. "Oh, yeah. I think I drove out there for a meeting. It was last minute. One of the brand clients needed FaceTime. It wasn't worth mentioning." "You didn't tell me." "I didn't want to bother you," she said, too fast. "It was a dinner meeting. Nothing serious. You were at your brother's anyway, right?" I watched her closely. "Who was it with?" "Just a guy from the agency. Jeff something. We talked about packaging direction and QR code placements. Boring stuff." I reached for the remote, hit mute. Then I said quietly, "You picked a nice spot. The Whitestone Hotel?" She went still. Not frozen, just paused, like a computer buffering. "I found the receipt," I added. "Room service for two. Wine, dessert." She turned her face toward me slowly, and for a moment, I thought she'd come clean. But instead she smiled, a soft, dismissive smile. "That? Oh, that wasn't mine. I picked it up for Mia, my manager. It was a client dinner after meeting with Jeff. She was supposed to go but had a family thing, so I filled in. I covered the bill and took the receipt to expense it. I must have forgotten to toss it." Her voice was steady, almost bored. "You covered a $186 meal for someone else?" "Client optics," she said with a shrug. "It happens." I nodded like I believed her. But something about how quickly the lie came out told me everything I needed to know. After that night, something shifted. Not between us, exactly. On the surface, things stayed the same. We still had dinner together, still passed each other in the hallway with half smiles and the usual, "You good?" and, "Yeah, just tired." But underneath? I started listening harder. Bonnie had always worked weird hours. She freelanced in brand design, mostly packaging and retail campaigns, so late-night edits weren't new. Neither were random client calls. But now, every time she said, "I've got to jump on a call," I started writing down the time. Each dinner she skipped, each errand she ran at 9 p.m., I made a note. I didn't accuse her, didn't ask questions. I just started keeping track. She didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. 2 weeks after the hotel receipt, she told me she had a strategy session across town, a new skincare brand looking for a refresh. "They want in-person. Just a brainstorm session, no big deal, she said, grabbing her tote. Might run late. Where's the meeting? I asked, pouring coffee. She blinked. Oh, that co-working space near 12th. You know, the one we passed last week, near that bakery. Right, I said. I kissed her cheek, smiled, and watched her walk out. Once she left, I pulled out my iPad and opened Find My. Something she'd forgotten was still linked to my account. The pin didn't move toward 12th. It went in the opposite direction, to a neighborhood across town, all residential. The pin settled on a quiet street I didn't recognize. I watched it hover for a few minutes, then go still. She wasn't at any co-working space. She was inside someone's house. That night, she came home around 11:30, hair down, flushed, carrying a takeout box she said was leftover pasta. Long session? I asked. Exhausting, she said, kicking off her flats. They don't know what they want. It's like designing in the dark. I nodded. Didn't mention the pin. Didn't mention the street. But I wrote it all down. It was a Thursday when I decided to go see for myself. Bonnie had mentioned another strategy dinner that night. Same story, different client, same co-working space. She left around 6:15, dressed in a black blazer and heels she hadn't worn in months. Her tone was casual, but she checked her hair in the mirror twice before heading out. I waited 20 minutes, then grabbed my keys. The address she'd pinged last time, still saved in my notes. It took me 15 minutes to get there. I parked half a block down, engine off, headlights out. After a minute, I got out and walked the rest of the way, keeping to the sidewalk. The place was a 2-story brick duplex. Porch light on, blinds open halfway. A warm yellow glow spilled out of the living room window. I stopped across the street, far enough not to be noticed. At 7:03, I saw her. Bonnie walked into view, barefoot, holding a wine glass, her laugh barely muffled through the window. She sat down on the couch and tucked her legs underneath her. Next to her was a man, mid-30s, short dark hair, casual button-down. He handed her a plate and leaned in close to say something. She laughed again and touched his wrist. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. Not to post, not to share, just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. At 7:42, the lights dimmed. They didn't pull the curtains. Her hand was on his leg. He leaned in, her head tilted slightly. They kissed. I took one more photo. Then I drove home in silence. Didn't watch the rest. Didn't need to. That night, she walked in at 10:24, still barefoot, holding a takeout box. Long night, she said, voice light. I need a shower. I nodded from the kitchen table. Everything go okay? She didn't look up. Yeah, just tired. I watched her walk past me, up the stairs. My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet. The photos were already backed up. The pattern was now confirmed. The next morning, while Bonnie was still asleep, I opened the hallway storage cabinet. Tucked behind some blankets and board games was her old tablet, the one I got her for her birthday 3 years ago. She stopped using it after upgrading to a new phone, said it was too slow. But I knew her habits. She rarely logged out of anything. I charged it. The screen lit up with a dull blue glow. No password, just a swipe to unlock. I tapped the Messages app. Not her phone messages, but a third-party chat client. One I didn't recognize. Some encrypted-looking thing. But she'd been lazy. Notifications were on. The inbox opened. And there it was. Jeremy. The thread went back months. Daily chats, middle-of-the-day comments, morning check-ins, late-night goodnights, sometimes dozens of messages in a day. One from Jeremy said he was still thinking about the other night and that he couldn't believe how long it took them to do this. Bonnie had replied, "Me too. I feel like I've been asleep for years." Photos followed. One was of her sitting cross-legged in his kitchen, wearing a flannel shirt that wasn't mine. Another, her holding a wine glass on his porch. A third, them together in front of a fire pit. His arm was around her waist. I didn't scroll too fast. I made myself read everything. The worst part wasn't the flirting. It was the intimacy. Inside jokes I didn't get. Nicknames I'd never heard. Conversations about books, road trip playlists, even future plans, the kind we used to talk about, now shared with him. Then I saw it. A message from the night she was at the client dinner. When I got home, he asked again where I was, she wrote. I think he knows. I hate lying, but I can't stop seeing you. That one made my fingers go cold. I screenshotted everything that mattered. The dates, the confessions, the photos. I emailed them to myself. Then I powered off the tablet. That afternoon, I bought a manila envelope and a new printer cartridge. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't even going to ask questions. I was going to end it clean. Saturday morning, I woke up before her. The house was still. Sunlight crept through the blinds. I got up, made coffee like I always did, and poured it into her favorite mug, the one that said, "Create something beautiful." Then I set the mug on the counter untouched. Her weekender bag sat by the stairs, packed. 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, chargers, everything she'd need for a few days. Next to it, on the kitchen island, was the manila envelope. I didn't write a note. Didn't need to. Bonnie came down around 9:30, still in her robe, hair damp from the shower. She stopped cold when she saw the bag. Then her eyes moved to the envelope. She picked it up slowly, slid the papers out. 1 page, then 2. Her face didn't change, just a faint twitch in her jaw. "Where did you get these?" she asked, voice low. I didn't answer, just sipped my coffee. She stared at the photos, the messages. Her mouth opened like she wanted to explain, like she was searching for a lie that might still work. But nothing came. Instead, she walked to the table and sat down. "This wasn't supposed to be a thing," she said. "Jeremy and I, it started as nothing. I didn't think it would go this far." I nodded once. "But it did." She looked at me. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Greg." "You didn't mean to get caught," I said. She exhaled through her nose. "So what now? You kicking me out?" I stood up, calm. "You don't live here anymore. You can take what you need." She stared at me. "You're just done?" "Bonnie," I said quietly, "you made your choice a long time ago. I'm just now acting on mine." She sat still for a moment, then slowly gathered the papers, slid them back into the envelope, and zipped her bag. "I don't want this to get ugly," she said. "It already did," I replied. "You just dressed it up." She walked upstairs without another word. A few minutes later, she came back down, dressed, eyes dry, bag in hand. She walked to the door, paused. "You really never suspected until now?" I looked her in the eyes. "I suspected the moment your story was too smooth." Then I closed the door behind her. 3 days later, I got a text from my friend Kyle. "You seen Bonnie's post?" I hadn't. I didn't follow her anymore, but curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up her profile. It was a black and white selfie, her hair tousled just right, eyes red like she'd been crying. The caption said, "Sometimes love turns into a cage, and walking away is the only way to breathe again." Hundreds of likes. The comments rolled in fast. "Proud of you, girl. You deserve peace. Freeing yourself is strength." I scrolled slowly. Not surprised. Bonnie had always been a master of tone. She could sell heartache like it was poetry. There was no mention of me, no mention of Jeremy, no admission, just carefully curated pain. Later that night, I saw someone had commented, "You forgot to mention the boyfriend you were sneaking around with." No name, no profile photo, just a quiet grenade. I refreshed. The comment was gone. Deleted. I didn't react, didn't message her, didn't try to tell my side or correct hers. I wasn't going to compete over who could look more heartbroken on Instagram. I filed it away. Just another lie, dressed up for likes. She controlled the version people saw. I controlled the facts. I logged out of every shared app, transferred the money from our joint account into my personal one, updated every password one by one. Then I called a lawyer, told him I wanted to file for divorce. Clean, efficient. By Thursday, it was like she'd never lived here. But the post stuck with me. Not because it hurt. It didn't. What bothered me was how easily people chose a side based on framing. She'd rewritten the ending of our marriage as a story of survival. And the worst part? They applauded her for it. But I didn't need their approval. I had the truth. And unlike her, I didn't need to dress it up. The first weekend without her felt quieter than I expected. Not empty, just still. I cleaned out the closet, packed her remaining clothes into boxes, and slid them into the garage. I threw out the rosemary shampoo that always gave me headaches but made her feel expensive. Replaced the framed photo on the nightstand with a simple print, a winding trail through pine trees. Nothing symbolic, just something clean. On Sunday, I made coffee and reached for a mug, then stopped. Her mug was still there. Create something beautiful. I looked at it for a long time. Then I dropped it in the trash without a sound and grabbed a plain black one from the back. That was the thing about betrayal. It didn't leave a scar you could point to. No blood, no dramatic music. It just rearranged the silence, changed the way your house breathed when you walked through it alone. A few days after the post, she finally texted, "Greg, please, can we talk when things settle down? I didn't want it to be this way." I didn't reply, because it had already been this way. I was just the last one to accept it. I thought back to that receipt in the glove box, the one small mistake that unraveled everything. It hadn't been about the wine or the hotel. It was about the way she explained it, the way she'd looked me in the eye and lied with total ease. That was the moment I started taking myself seriously again. There's a line you cross when you stop hoping someone will return to who they were and start protecting who you've become in their absence. I was there now. Every account was reset, every thread documented, every trace of her online presence muted, blocked, cleared. No revenge, no grand finale, just facts, distance, peace. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. Bonnie didn't fight it. No arguments, no back and forth, just paperwork and a quiet end. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not an explanation, not an apology, just done. That was enough. Thank you for watching.